Hello, I just want to give a moment here for some people to log in who might want to log in. Um, I'm getting a lot of comments on the Harpazo channel um, about the time of the Great Tribulation. There's Kitty back there who does not care about the tribulation at all. Um, anyway, a lot of people seems to me kind of rudely just kind of pop in and say there is no tribulation and then disappear, ghost me. There is no 7 year tribulation. Well, and then another gentleman just recently popped in again and made the same assertion. There is no 7 year tribulation, not one verse. And then made some comments and took some verses out of context. And I don't know where he's headed, so I asked him where he's headed. Are you trying to start your own channel on my channel, or are you are you open to discussing this or what? So anyway, the 7 year tribulation, for those who assert that there is no 7 year tribulation. Well, nowhere in the Bible, not one verse. You're right, not one verse. Actually, there are a few. And you can begin with Daniel 9:27, where the angel Gabriel came and visited Daniel to give him the 70 weeks prophecy. And then in his discussion revealing this to Daniel, he mentions the abomination of desolation. And it's clear in the context of what he's discussing, and it's not really disputed, that when he's speaking of a week, he's speaking of a week of years, not a 7 day week kind of a deal as we understand it. Week is a Hebraism that is similar to what we might say in the Western culture, a dozen. A dozen is a grouping of 12, whether it's a dozen days, a dozen eggs, or a dozen donuts. So a week is similar. So, and then in Daniel 9:27 it says, in the middle of the week. Sounds like 7 to me, and he's talking about the abomination of desolation. We can flash forward now to Jesus in Matthew 24 in his Olivet Discourse. In the Olivet Discourse, he's talking again about, so when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, and so Jesus is again kind of certifying, codifying that this is a future thing from his time. And of that time, Jesus says it's a time that's going to be the worst time in history, that there's never been anything so bad before that time, and there will never again be a time that's worse. So that's, by the way, that's one way we know that wasn't 70 AD, because both world wars were worse than 70 AD. So there was a worse time since 70 AD. So that means it's yet in our future. Let's flash forward now to where we actually see the events of the Great Tribulation, this week of years, play out in the book of Revelation. There are more verses that have to do, that will give us the timeline, the time references. Chapters 11, 12, and 13 speaks in terms of a couple of segments of years, 1260 days going in and 1260 days going forward. I'm not a math genius or whatever, but that sounds like 7 years. It's given in terms of one half of that time being 42 months, and it's also given in terms of a time, times, and half a time, 3.5 years. So you're right, there isn't one verse that mentions a 7 year tribulation. There are several, and I don't know why people are voting that and have a problem with it and get all freaked out and wigged out and have to go through all these biblical gymnastics and contextual things to try to disprove it. Why don't you want to believe the Bible for what it says? What is your issue? I think it's a spiritual thing. You need to pray, seek the Lord, and not go ballistic, and just get into the Word, enjoy the Word, learn, pray, seek wisdom from the Holy Spirit. And that's all I have to say about that.